Joining me right now is Senate Intelligence Committee Vice Chairman, Florida Senator Marco Rubio. Senator, it's great to see you this morning. Thanks very much for being here. I'm giggling hearing Putin talk about cyber attacks coming from America and Canada right after we know that the two major hacks that we saw here in America with ransomware attached were from Russia. Your reaction to that summit?
Yeah, I mean, there's two things that I mean, it's not funny, but you got to giggle about. The first is the last statement that ran right before I came on there about Putin saying that it came from the cyber realm of the United States. I mean, it's a typical Putin type statement. To begin with, I mean, what these hackers do is they lease, you know, an IP address in the U.S., the infrastructure out of the U.S., but they're not sitting in downtown Chicago. I mean, they're in somewhere operating out of Russia, and he knows. I mean, look, in Russia, if they want to crack down on you, they'll come get you. I mean, we've seen that and what he does to defectors. And the other thing that's stunning is apparently Joe Biden handed him a list and said, here are the 17 things you can't hack. If it's not on this list, it's not a big deal. I can't believe that that's true. Like, I cannot believe that they actually printed out a list and said, here's 16 industries where if you attack them, I'll get mad. Anything that's not on the list, you know, I guess is fair game. I mean, that just can't be, that's something out of a sitcom. That can't be real.
But you're right, but it is real, okay? He actually went through a list of 16 areas that the U.S. is most vulnerable, and that should be off limits, as if we're okay with hacking anywhere else. And why open up our secrets telling an adversary what's most important to you? I mean, the whole thing is a joke.
Yeah, and I think, look, at the end of the day, it's not so much at the end of the day about the list per se, although I think it gives you a little bit of sense of the mentality, right? And that is, we're not going to send him into that room to meet with Vladimir Putin unless he has a list and it's written on paper so he doesn't mess up and so forth. But I think Putin leaves there and says, number one, this guy gave me a list. And on that list are 16 or 17 industries that if they get hit, he's going to be mad. So that pretty much gives me free rein to do anything else and wave this list in his face and say, I don't know what you're complaining about. But the second is, I think it gives him the sense that this guy may be not in full control of the government over there. I mean, he may not be the one entirely running the show. They had to actually print a list for him. And, you know, if I were Putin, I probably wanted to get Biden and him doing one of those joint press conferences like you saw him do with Trump 3 or 4 years ago, because I think in that setting, Putin probably thought he could take advantage of him and get one up on him. So in any event, that's what I'm most concerned about is, does Putin leave the summit with a sense that he can now test America and get away with certain things?
But Senator, broadly speaking, assess this administration's foreign policy. I've been saying it repeatedly that it feels like he keeps giving victories to our adversaries. Russia is one, China is another, Iran is another. You know, taking down the sanctions from the company operating Nord Stream 2 in Russia, allowing China and the Communist Party to do what it wants, not even confronting them on the origins of COVID, trying and begging the Iranians to get back into the Iran deal. What's your take overall? What is the takeaway on foreign policy today?
Well, first, it's early, right? So, I mean, we're going to begin to see it more flush out more fully. So, to be fair on that front. No, but here's the point. Here are the places we do know already, okay? I think the Iranians and all these other countries that are watching these negotiations have a clear sense that Joe Biden and his administration are desperate to get back into the Iran deal. And that's why I think Iran is going to make unreasonable claims, and they may get it. They may get a lot of it. They want cash. They want reparations for the 4 years of sanctions and the money they lost. They want a guarantee that a future president can't come back and unravel the whole deal. They're going to ask for all sorts of these things because I think they sense that Biden wants a deal so badly that he'll give in on some of these things. I think you look at China. You can talk tough. You can warn them. You can do this and that. But at the end of the day, one of the first things he did a few weeks ago is he waived these restrictions that are placed on military companies and investments in them. Some of the moves that the Trump administration had put in place because somebody came to him. Same thing with the Nord Stream pipeline. They didn't sanction that because what happens is you talk tough, but then you go talk to someone at the State Department who says, we really can't do this because if we do this, it'll upset Germany or it'll upset some other country. That's not the mature, conventional thing to do. So let's talk tough. Let's send a clear warning and a very stern statement, but then let's not impose these sanctions to show them we're different. And from the previous administration. And so I think the Chinese and the Russians and everyone out, the Iranians are saying, hey, it's back to business as usual over there. And that's what they wanted. They loved business as usual before Trump came to office.
Yeah, I mean, the China story really is unnerving because what you have going on is corporate America being allowed to fund the expansion of China's military. And look at Biden's budget. We're actually looking at a decline in defense spending as China ramps up its Navy. So it's very distressing to see President Biden not acknowledge the threat that is China. Is there a conflict of interest? How do you not see that?
I don't know. I can't tell you what there is. I don't want to, ascribe motives to it. So all I can deduce from it is the conventional school of thought is you can't really do these harsh things because it creates friction in international relations. The most outrageous thing of all is federal employees, including members of the military, their retirement funds go into this thrift savings plan. The thrift savings plan invests in companies that are developing weapons to kill them. So you have people taking their retirement money and investing it in companies who are working to kill them if we ever get into combat or into any sort of active event against them with the Chinese. It's crazy. And I have a bill to ban that. I've been working on it for 2 years.
Crazy.
Yeah.
You've been working on that bill for 2 years. You've been communicating this for several years. Why isn't Larry Fink, the head of BlackRock, and Ray Dalio at Bridgewater understanding the national security threat that exists, that they want to fund these companies?
Well, I can't speak for them as individuals. I can just tell you generally in Wall Street, they understand it. They just don't care. I mean, there's a lot of money here, right? I mean, do you care about some theoretical future conflict with China, or do you care about billions of dollars this quarter? That's what it's all about.
They are really letting us down, Senator. Let me move on to the border, because former President Trump is going to travel to the border at the invitation of Texas Governor Abbott. Vice President Kamala Harris has still not gone. She says she's going to go, but last week's trip to Guatemala really put in better focus what's going on there, where she just refuses it. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis now has announced he is sending Florida law enforcement officials to the southern border in response to the request from Texas and Arizona for help. The number of migrants crossing, 180,000 migrants apprehended at the border in May alone. And that, as you know, doesn't even include the gotaways, Senator. What would you like to see come out of this with Florida officials going to Texas to protect our border?
Well, I think they're going to try to help local law enforcement. My sense is they're probably going to fill in the whatever law enforcement in Texas can't do because they have to deal with the border. But whatever assistance we can provide to a state that's trying to address with the carryover effects of this is a federal responsibility. I'm not sure what could be done at this point. I do not remember, certainly not in my years of watching American politics, a more disastrous series of meetings and a foreign visit than what Kamala Harris's was to Guatemala. I can't remember a more disastrous episode for vice president or for president, for that matter. But I think it's unfortunate. They campaigned for months on they're going to be totally different from Trump. And no matter what she says and they say now, the perception is out there in much of Central America that the United States under Joe Biden is very lax. And that's an incentive for people to take this journey. It's a dangerous journey. They shouldn't do it. But they're not going to listen to Kamala Harris because she says don't come. They've got a year and a half of her running for president saying we're not going to turn anyone away. And they believed her.
Well, they also put $4 billion in the Biden budget toward Central America. So they want to send the money, perhaps thinking that will deter people. I don't understand, but that's where they want to send money. Meanwhile, there's no increase for Homeland Security and no increase for defense spending. But, Senator, I want to get on to this new bill that you've introduced with Senator Hawley, the limiting Section 230 immunity to Good Samaritan Act. It would prohibit big tech companies from receiving Section 230 immunity without updating their terms of service to operate under a clear good faith standard, a $5,000 fine if violated. Senator, it feels like now the Democrats and the Republicans are in line with everyone wants to bring big tech down to size. But there were 5 bills unveiled in the House Judiciary Committee, and it feels like all of those bills just give more power to the Biden administration. Tell me about your bill and what's needed for big tech.
Well, first of all, they're monopolies, and they have too much power now concentrated in the hands of 5 or 6 companies. I mean, if 5 companies get in a room, okay, if Apple, Microsoft, Google, Facebook, and Twitter all get in a room and say, we want to destroy someone, we're going to shut them down, we don't like them, we don't like their politics, they'll destroy you. They'll wipe you off the face of the earth. You won't exist. You can't commerce. You can't do business. You can't communicate. this can't continue. Second of all, they have acted in bad faith. As an example, if a year ago you were going around telling people that the lab leak theory in China was credible, they would not have allowed you to post that. They would have taken it down, and if you did it repeatedly, you would have been framed and labeled a conspiracy theorist and a spreader of disinformation. A year later, they've had to reform their policies. But people's reputations were destroyed. People were called terrible things. This happens every single day. They decide what's true, and there's nothing you can't sue them. You cannot sue them. If a newspaper publishes something about me that's or maybe not as a public figure, but others, a private citizen, they've published something about you that isn't true and is damaging, you can sue them. You can't sue these companies. So they have to act in good faith, and if they don't, they should be liable, just like a publisher is.
So where does that legislation stand? Tell me how it travels now, and when you would expect to get more support on that.
Well, look, it's been an uphill climb on this, right? I think you have, on the one hand, people who say, yeah, I'm open to it, but behind the scenes are not for it because big tech is something they support and they've gotten friendly with and they hear all their arguments. I think another is you have actually bipartisan agreement. Republicans and Democrats all agree, or many agree, that big tech is too big and it's too much power and needs to be reformed. Yeah. I think we're just approaching it from a different angle, right? We don't want them to be a monopoly, but we don't want them to be unfair and go after the people's free speech rights. I think the left is arguing, yes, right, they're a monopoly, but we want them to go after people's free speech rights who we don't agree with, and so
exactly.
And so that's the difference. They want them to crack down more on Republicans and conservatives, and we want them to let everyone speak.
Yeah, that's why I'm skeptical of 5 bills coming out of the House Judiciary Committee run by Jerry Nadler. Let me move on to the Navy and the FBI giving the House Intelligence Committee a classified briefing on UFOs yesterday. Senator, we've spoken on this topic before, and what we learned from yesterday was that these UFOs cause a pressing threat to America's national security, as the highly classified briefing apparently were things that those people did not know before. Do you believe that these unidentified flying objects are new technology from our adversaries?
I hope they're not. I don't know what they are. I don't think the Navy or the intelligence community knows what it is. But I think the point is you're never going to find out if you don't start looking. For many years, it was just being ignored. It was like, it doesn't make sense. We've never seen it before, so don't report it. We don't know what it is. Look, we don't need a report to tell us it's a national security threat. It's flying over restricted airspace, and it isn't ours.